The art of wave riding is constantly evolving. Today, there are no boundaries as to what is possible or what will be accomplished next. This is the story of 3 California surfers who journeyed to Africa, searching through surfing's past, looking back to its simple and pure beginnings, chasing a voice and an idea from beyond the grave. In California during the 1950s, surfing was still a relatively new endeavor, and there were only a handful of young misfits riding waves. They didn't do it for money or fame, but simply because they loved it. It was a time we know now as the golden era of surfing. Within that small group of surfers was a young Miki Dora, whose brash rebel attitude and graceful style made him one of the most recognizable surfers on the still untouched California coast.
When Miki and I started surfing, we were lucky enough to start in a more or less uncrowded era where we had the premier breaks. We had the point breaks. We had Malibu, we had Rincon. We had the best breaks in the world pretty much to ourselves.
To most of America, surfing remained an unknown sport until 1959, when the film Gidget was released, propelling it into mainstream pop culture. Hollywood employed California's best surfers for the film, Dora as an extra, and Munoz doubling for Gidget. He continued to act in Hollywood films, and at the same time spoke out against the commercialization of surfing, creating the irony that would define his life.
Anything that had to do with, society being organized and kind of imposing its will upon the masses, he was against.
Dora's vision and his mode of expression is so different than anyone else's, and his cynicism runs so deep, and he's kind of an antichrist of surfing.
Dora and his image is an interesting mixture of he'd play the game, then he wouldn't want to play the game. I mean, he was always playing a game, but which one was it?
He'd rail against all the sponsorship and all the professionalism and all that. It was all hoopla and bullshit, but he was in there getting his. Hypocrisy, maybe.
Dora's hypocrisy only reflected the irony of surfing itself. The once golden era had been lost because those things that made it so great also made it a marketable commodity.
Surfing now is shrink-wrapped and packaged and put on the shelf. Even the show is a commodity. My magazine is a commodity. For Miki, surfing was not a commodity. It was just a dance. He did it for himself. He didn't give a holy shit if anyone else liked it or not.
Because of his unique style and attitude, he was dubbed the Black Knight of surfing, and went on to live the life of a wandering outlaw, chasing waves around the world. Before his death in 2002, he would only surface occasionally to voice his ideas on how wave riding should be approached. It was one of these ideas that caught the attention of 3 California surfers. Marc Andrieni, a little-known but highly respected surfboard shaper from Northern California. Robert Wingnut Weaver, professional surfer and star of The Endless Summer 2. And Miki Munoz, a Waimea wave pioneer and surfing legend. Dora said this idea was the last chance to save the lost soul of surfing. The concept was to hold an event following a set of unique rules, the first of which would send these 3 surfers halfway across the globe to the world's fastest wave at Jeffreys Bay, South Africa. Once they get there, the event must be held in surf 8 feet or over. There are to be no sponsors, no stickers, no logos, and no leashes. The rider must wear all natural fibers, no neoprene, as well as make a board out of all organic materials. It must not exceed a length of 9 feet 6 inches, and must have a square 10-inch tailblock with a single fin. There will be no judges. The esteem of the day will go to the rider who covers the longest distance from point A to point B. At first glance, Dora's idea seems outrageous. Even trying to paddle out at J-Bay an 8-foot surf on a wood longboard with no wetsuit in 50-degree water appears impossible. And beyond the impossibility is the natural question, why?
Well, Miki's always been offended by how the masses approach the sport of surfing. And so I think he was taunting our audience to do something aesthetic, put down commercialism, flip off the establishment.
Is it Dora reaching out from the grave and just screwing with people? Sure. You know, sure it is.
Mickey was kind of throwing the gauntlet down, if you will. You know, where are the Iron Men and the wooden ships, so to speak?
I think it's like the perfect event, really, because there's no influence from the sponsors who put the more bucks in, and so the whole commercialism has gone from it, and that's probably where surfing was when he started, and I think that's what those were probably really good times in his life, and that's what he identifies with, and he wants to take it back to the way it was.
After deciding to bring Dora's idea to life, Marc, Miki, and Wingnut had spent months preparing for this trip to South Africa. It's a beautiful place reminiscent of California 100 years ago. So much of it unspoiled by the outside world.
The trip over was pretty exciting. I mean, I haven't been back to Africa in 12 years. Even as brutal as the, 2-day plane rides and all that, it was like, I get to go back. I get to go back to J Bay. I mean, a semi-asinine, reason to come. Let's think of the most difficult way we could ride this place. But sure, if that's what it takes, we're in. This will be fun.
Miki and Marc had never surfed Jeffreys Bay before, and Wingnut only once 12 years ago. So they decided to talk to someone who knew the place and went to find former world champion and Mr. J Bay, Shaun Tomson.
I find that in my travels throughout the world, there is some sort of energy that attracts different people to a place like this. So they've come here, most of them, for a very pure reason, just to ride waves.
J Bay is one of the fastest, longest waves in the world. And because of that, it has become a destination on the World's Championship Tour of Surfing. The top 44 surfers in the world are out in the water preparing for the Billabong Pro in some of the best waves of the winter. This time of year, huge swells roll in from the Antarctic, bringing in cold water and unfriendly guests. As Miki, Wingnut, and Marc stood facing the reality of the challenge they had taken on, none of them said anything, but you could tell they were nervous.
There's nothing like the energy that's exuded by a perfect wave, a place that's really a geographic fluke. There's only maybe 2 or 3 other perfect right-hand point breaks like this in the world.
The wave at Jeffreys Bay is so fast and technical that this section known as Super Tubes wasn't even surfed until 20 years after its discovery. Shaun has spent a lifetime mastering this wave. There's no one who rides it better.
I think the essence of riding this place has remained the same. You have to draw that perfect line. There is this kind of energy band to this wave, and you've got to find it, you've got to kind of ride around that. And the surfers that understand it and have that innate sensitivity are the surfers that ride it the best.
Besides Shaun, no one rides this wave better than Kelly Slater. He has won 2 of the last 3 tour events held here.
Kelly's probably the best there ever will be. And getting him to ride the perfect point break, I mean, it's amazing. It really is. I mean, talking about making you feel like you're driving a station wagon around, when you're riding our boards. I mean, that's the ultimate level, performance level in the sport of surfing today.
to see why Dora wanted to hold his event here, where distance is key. If you can make it through these fast sections, there's the possibility for a really long ride. Huge walls of water hit the tip of the bay at a break called Boneyards. Then they wrap around, ripping through super tubes, sectioning multiple times, and eventually end at a break called the Point, more than a mile down the beach. Jeffreys Bay is the perfect wave for the modern style of surfing. It's long, hollow, and fast. 40 years ago, when my grandfather came to South Africa to film the original Endless Summer, they wouldn't have even thought of riding a wave like this. In fact, Jeffreys Bay hadn't even been discovered yet. They were in search of their own perfect wave, and found it at nearby Cape St. Francis, inspiring a group of South African surfers, including a young Max Wetland, to find the wave themselves, and is still untouched in uncharted territory.
Max Wetland was one of the great surfboard shapers and manufacturers here in South Africa, and also one of South Africa's top surfers. Max said that after he met with Bruce Brown in Durban, Bruce had told him about this amazing wave that he'd found out in Cape St. Francis that was so long that...
While he was filming Robert August, his camera had run out. He had the wound-up Bolex camera. So we were like, we have to go and see this place.
So Max came down here and tried to find it, couldn't find it, and had heard about this really great fish and chip shop here in Jeffreys Bay.
We drove north out of the fish and chip shop, and on our way we had to stop for a leak. While we were having a leak, we looked back and we saw this long point with white water on the end of it. We just looked at each other and said, hey, that's got to be it, you know? This is where Bruce's beauties are.
When the Endless Summer was released a couple of years later, Max realized they had not found Cape St. Francis, but instead had discovered Jeffreys Bay. Jeffreys was looking good. I'd think twice about paddling out with a 9-foot wood board. The guys didn't seem thrilled about waiting for it to get bigger, but decided to stay true to Dora's idea and wait for the 8-foot-plus waves that they needed for their event. Max and Shaun introduced them to a local surfer and shaper, Andrew Carter, who was headed out to Cape St. Francis and suggested they come along.
Bruce's Beauties, which is what it's known as here, is Cape St. Francis, and it is it's the apex of the film, of the original Endless Summer, and people have fantasized about it their entire lives.
You know, in 1964, I was at Santa Barbara Junior High, where I went to school, and your grandfather was sitting on the stage with a reel-to-reel tape recorder and a microphone, and he's sitting next to a screen and narrating it in person. So I was there, and I saw it before it went onto the big screen. And for every single one of us at the time, the idea of traveling and finding a perfect wave, that we've never stopped talking about it.
It's the holy grail of surf spots, and if you're in South Africa, I don't care what, you're gonna get in the water there, you have to.
The place has changed a lot since 1963. Instead of running down sand dunes, you now drive through a parking lot. When the wave breaks, it's still very good, but as the years have passed, it happens less and less.
Sand is no longer filling in to the point, so it's very deep out there, so the wave very, very seldom breaks now. You know, and it's unfortunate that the development, which was caused by the discovery of this perfect wave, has destroyed this perfect wave.
Even though the wave didn't look the way they had envisioned it, it's still Cape St. Francis, so they decided to get wet.
If we comply with pretty much what Miki wanted us to do, it would make the surfing public more aware. We're out there in this wonderful natural environment, and yet we're riding petrochemicals.
If there was a petrochemical disaster that caused us to have to go back to organics to ride waves, it might not be all that bad. And I think that's what Dora was challenging was to imagine that that was the case and to be reliant on yourself. That was maybe the major point of the whole exercise.
Three months before arriving in Africa, the creation of the guys' all-natural boards had begun. Miki was hard at work in Dana Point, California. Wingnut had 2 boards being made for him, and Marc was getting started on his.
You know, you're always afraid that you're going to ruin one of the pieces of wood. And you want to make sure that you don't end up where the splits or the holes or the knots are right where you need to be shaping. I have a water tower, and some of that lumber I used here. I made the stringers for this board out of that water tower. It's the darkest, most beautiful old-growth redwood I've seen.
I know Marc a little bit back in California, but haven't been on a surf trip with him. And I mean, he latched onto this thing like a pit bull about the possibilities and the adventure and the board design. He's from a quieter side of the surf world. You know, the classic example is somebody that actually got a real job. He has as much history and as much background in surfing as anyone.
It's hard to believe something like this can turn into something that you can ride. So it makes me really anxious to start, whittling on it. I think Dora just wanted to mess with us. A 9.4 with a 10-inch tail block. Something that only he could ride. Right now, all we're doing is looking backwards and utilizing technology that was already figured out by our forefathers. This template is from a 1962 Waimea gun. We're just chopping the back end of it off. Well, there isn't one guy who isn't extremely excited about the challenge of figuring out how to make a natural board and ride it. There isn't anybody who doesn't want to do that is a board builder. I think it's just a natural or innate desire that we have. I mean, we're in the plastics era, so we make them out of plastic, but there's nothing like making something out of wood. The more I think about this project, I think the whole point was he was trying to get people to force themselves to figure out a way to experience surfing just using their own mind, natural substances, and their own hands.
I mean, his board's absolutely stunning. Absolutely the prettiest one, I think the prettiest of the 3.
The original idea was to have each rider shape their own board. Wingnut, not being known for his shaping prowess, asked the guys if he could have his board shaped for him. They agreed, so he went to 2 of California's best shapers. Randy French at Surf Tech was shaping a top-secret board somewhere in isolation, while Mike Mitchington at Robert August Surfboards was shaping another.
So Mike Mitchington's one of the shapers in the Robert August empire, and Mike made all my boards for Endless Summer too. And he builds wood boards all the time.
When Wingnut called me, he said, "Can you do it?" And I said, "No problem." I went up, pulled down a blank, and started shaping it that day.
And I don't think it's really, a competition as far as that. It's like, my board's better than your kind of board or anything like that. It's just kind of probably it helps design in a way, because people have their different design ideas and see how it gets applied to this wood.
I mean, he is an amazing craftsman. He had that thing done, tail block, figured out the fin, the whole thing, and then he started varnishing it. I mean, he's just a fantastic craftsman and loved every minute of it.
After getting some very small surf at Cape St. Francis, Andrew decided to make it up to the guys and take them on an 1,100-mile drive through primitive villages and rugged terrain to one of the most remote places in South Africa, a place called the Transkei, also known as the Wild Coast.
It's seeing the part of Africa that you want to see when you come on a trip like this. I mean, of course, we're going to Jeffries and want to serve the greatest right-hand point, but you know, you're in Africa. So a chance to really get out into the wild part of it was, what a great idea.
Transcar, or the Wild Coast, is, for me, it's the most unbelievable part of this country. It's still probably the most untouched part, which is part of the beauty. In fact, one of the reasons why I left Jeffries is because being up here in Jeffries Bay, it was an extra 3.5, 4 hours to get even close to the beginning of the Wild Coast. So going back to East London just brought me back to where that much closer to the beauty, the wildness.
Driving up on the N2, you're really on the middle of nowhere, and that's where we come across Justin and his board bag.
I heard you guys were up there. I just wanted to get out of Jeffries, so I just grabbed the first thing that I could. And got a ride with some guy, and he just kicked me out on the side of the road there.
The guys were happy to pick up Justin, who, as it turned out, was one of the best young South African surfers and had been walking the coast of Africa by himself for over 3 years. He'd started in Morocco in February of 2002, leaving with nothing but his board bag. He told the guys he had just passed through J Bay and decided to move on because the World Surfing Tour and the Billabong Pro were in town, and the waves were too crowded. Meeting Justin and hearing about his journey was a reminder of the freedom that surfing allows. It was a reminder of a time when being a surfer and passionately chasing the feeling that riding waves brought was not accepted by mainstream society. It was a rebellious act, and over time, it became cool, and selling cool became a great business.
What really made surfing so attractive as a commodity was the lifestyle and the freedom that it implied. Riding a wave is a bit like flying. It kind of defeats gravity for little bits and pieces of the ride. And it just seems so charismatic, so improbable, so romantic, so daring, so living on the edge. And all the lifestyle that surrounded the riding of waves, the cars, the animal farms, the escapism, the kind of flipping off of society's values, ended up making it very attractive as a marketing vehicle for the youth market and turned it into a multi-billion-dollar industry. And the irony of that is extreme.
While the guys were still on their way out to the Wild Coast, that industry was in full force at Jeffries Bay for the Billabong Pro. Surf companies have become huge multi-million-dollar corporations, some even publicly traded. They economically fuel towns like J-Bay, as well as enable the top 44 surfers in the world to travel the globe and compete at the best breaks on the planet.
On my way back home,
the level that the pros bring to the water is amazing. They are out there competing for a championship and bragging rights, as well as prize money, photo ops, and corporate incentives. They're professional athletes doing what they love to do at the highest level there is. As with all pro athletes, there are people in back rooms fighting for pieces of them and fighting for pieces of the sport itself, and then arguing about what price to put on it and what package to put it in, because surfing sells.
And it's so pure, but just so attractive, so darn attractive, that it just got shrink wrapped and put on the shelf with a price tag.
Dora didn't like surfing packaged or organized, and that's why the event he proposed had the rules it did. He didn't want outside influences having any interference on the actual wave riding. This is why his idea was to have no sponsors and no judges.
Miki was protesting against the sort of glitter of professional surfing and the hoopla, sponsorship. A lot of it was sort of Hollywood-ish in a way.
Surfing is a pure individualistic endeavor, and also it has the element of free-form dance, artistic expression that goes with it, which makes it very, very difficult to judge.
This contest proved tough to judge, as after 7 rounds, 7-time world champion Kelly Slater would beat 3-time champion Andy Irons in the finals by one of the narrowest point margins ever.
For a while, the judgment was so opinionated, you had to perform certain tricks to get points, and they got away from a lot of the pureness of surfing. Well, in Mickey's eyes, you know, that was sort of a cheap shot compared to the purity of where he came from. Kelly sort of introduced a new era in shortboard riding where not only could you be spectacular and do a lot of great tricks, but also you could get in the barrel and you could make waves and get down the line. So he could complete the dance.
Amongst the mashed potatoes of the millions of surfers, there are beacons of purity and beauty as human beings that surf and ride waves. But even though the beauty or the essence of surfing becomes diffused by its growth and its mainstreaming, the ride itself is still such a sensory experience and such a cosmic connection that I still think the candle burns bright and pure, and it is so strong that it's impossible to put that light out. And therein lies the amazing kind of uniqueness to me of riding ocean waves and being a surfer.
One of the questions that I'm asked a lot is what's the difference between surfing today and surfing when I started, let's say through the 50s. There is no difference, really. A surfer is a surfer and a wave is a wave, and the equipment changes and the styles change, but the passion doesn't. The dedicated surfer who has dedicated their lives to surfing, they're all the same. I think that's the essence and the bond that allows us to travel together and play together and be on equal terms.
After a couple days of driving, the guys had reached the ocean. Looking down the coastline, they saw an endless stretch of empty beaches. Andrew took them to their first surf spot, known as the most beautiful beach in Africa. They had heard some stories about sharks out there and asked Andrew if there was anything to worry about.
Yeah, it was 11 years ago that 300 k's down the coast I got attacked by a 3 to 4 meter great white and took a big bite out of my left leg. So when people ask me about sharks, I'd rather keep quiet for a while until they're feeling secure,
Wingnut wasn't feeling very secure, but paddled out anyway. He wasted no time getting his first wave. Here they were, over 10,000 miles away from home, surfing empty waves on the wild coast of South Africa. The guys had heard Justin was a great young surfer, and he didn't disappoint. Surfing with a much more modern style compared to the more classic approach of Miki, Wingnut, and Marc.
I kind of see the evolution of surfboard design and surfing going hand in hand. You know, the surfer pushing the limits and needing better equipment, and the designers trying to design equipment to accommodate the surfer and push the surfer. As surfing gained popularity and these premier breaks got more and more crowded, the beginners and intermediates, the younger kids, were pushed out to the edges. Well, they were pushed out to the beach breaks. Our concept was you take off, get as close to the breaking part of the wave or into the tube as you could, but still make the wave. On a beach break, they didn't care. They just tried to get as many maneuvers in as they could before the wave would close out. Because of that, the equipment design started to change. We started to get shorter and shorter boards and more maneuverable, and so evolved the sort of modern thruster.
We lost a lot of individuality when we went to thrusters. There was a lot more finesse and style and approach because it was required with equipment that was, more limited.
The old surfers, before manufacturing, they made their own stuff. They made their own surfboards. No one had to put their name on the surfboards because you could tell by looking at them who had made it. They all had personalities.
Miki was one of the first of that early pioneer generation that went to Hawaii, that was part of the opening up of the California coast of surfers, and has seen everything happen. I mean, he's been here through the birth of the surf industry, the rise and falls of it as it goes through its cycles, and has been a craftsman through all of it. And that's what most surfers can't appreciate, is how much time he spent with his hands creating works of art that we ride and play on.
The two Mikis were kids together. Miki talks of having a surfboard patching business in his father's garage with Dora, and they smoked Munoz, his father's Cuban cheroots, and drank his gin. So, when you know someone since you're kids, you have a commonality. You understand each other pretty well.
We went to Hawaii the first time together. 1954 was our first trip there, and lived together that whole summer.
Miki's the ultimate lover of people, and Dora was the consummate cynic. So they were opposite poles, but joined at the hip by growing up at Malibu together.
Our last meeting was very shortly before he passed away.
In the end, when it really came down to it, Miki appreciated Dora for who he was, and was deeply, deeply touched by saying goodbye to him.
In the spirit of Miki's concept, he mentioned various organic materials that surfboards could be made out of, and most of the early boards were made out of redwood and balsa and pine. This particular wood is century plant, and it comes from a plant that's like in the aloe vera plant family, and grows in Mediterranean climates, and I believe they have similar plants in Africa. I try and pre-plan, but it's just like surfing. You look at the water and you look at the waves and you go, that's what I'm going to do. And you go out there and, shit happens and everything changes. I put my earmuffs on and I got my mask on and the machine's on, and you know, I'm just going to get lost in it and start working with it, how, you know, and how it feels. And you know, I've got a lot of background in shaping boards, so you know, something will come out of it. I'll, you know, use a varnish to seal the wood, and hopefully it'll serve. Hopefully I'll be able to ride the thing.
Word was traveling through the African grapevine that a massive southern swell was headed straight for Jeffreys Bay. The guys were amped and ready to go, but before they left, Justin had said that in his travels he had come across a secret spot that they couldn't miss.
Justin had this spot totally figured out for us. And probably the adventure in getting to the spot was almost as good as the spot itself. Had to, you know, climb this giant hill. There's a nice rock jump after it into a river, paddle down this river, and through a hole in a giant rock face, hole in the wall. We turned around and tried to surf a couple waves, but then out through it, turned the corner, and you got to that fantastic point break. I mean, what a setup.
They paddled through the hole and around the corner to a secluded cove. Justin said this wave only breaks about twice a year, but with the big swell headed towards Jeffreys, they had gotten lucky.
She was unstable, I could afford her. I'm underwater and holding it in. She was the answer to all of my questions, holding a river inside of my head.
You know, the common thread in a group like that, with ages all the way down from Justin up to Miki, is that we're surfers. We're passionate about the same thing. And the chance to go explore a coastline and catch waves and do it with your friends, I mean, it's what it's all about.
When you're sitting out in the water and you're riding waves, and you're watching the color changes, and you're rising up and down, and you're totally taken by the fact that you don't know what's going to happen, you're a surfer. That can't be taken away. You can have all the commercialism and all the hoopla and all the bells and whistles and all the bucks or whatever, but nobody can take that away if you're a surfer.
On top of mountains, she must not see me, though I am burning.
After their session at Justin's secret spot, the guys traveled through the night, chasing the swell back to Jeffreys Bay. While the Billabong Pro was clearing out, the swell was rolling in. Locals were calling it the swell of the year. The conditions were perfect, the waves had size, and it was time for the guys to do what they had come here to do.
When the idea first came up to go out, you know, because the conditions were A+ and it was going to be great, definitely on the concern side, because hearing what everybody was saying about the week, about how epic it was, that this was better than, you know, the finals of the Billabong Pro. You know, I mean, I've had at least a couple days out there, you know, 10 years ago, but it's a fairly demanding monster of a wave, especially at that size. And it's not like it's just your average crew of guys out at J Bay on an 8 to 10 foot day. It's the top 44, and you're watching guys coming in with broken boards and stuff. It's like there's a lot going on out there.
I was thinking, God, we've only been here one day, and we're already going to have to do this. And the first thing I thought about was, you know, the reality of it.
They were a little nervous about paddling out into such epic surf, especially at a place they didn't know. Each of them decided to take some time alone and prepare as much as they could. Wingnut decided to take his woodboard out at a mellower section of J Bay called The Point, which is a perfect longboard break. The 10-inch tail block and 25-pound board didn't seem to bother him, but Wingnut could ride your front door if he had to. Marc paddled out at Supers, where the event was to be held. He didn't exactly catch a screamer, but he got his feet wet. And standing up the beach was 67-year-old Miki Munoz, opting to go out with his regular board, waiting for a lull in the sets.
The thing that Miki has to keep himself from doing is this tendency from taking off too deep on a really big one. Because, I mean, he's got so much experience from Waimea in the early days. He's ridden all sorts of really good, really big waves. But this thing is just so progressive, you got to be careful that you don't get too deep.
Miki did take off too deep and paid the price twice. Things weren't looking so good for him. Back down at the point, things weren't looking any better as Wingnut, not wearing a leash, had lost his board into the rocks and damaged it to the point that it was unrideable. Luckily, he had the top secret Randy French board tucked away and would have to use that for the contest.
That thing should work pretty good. Haven't had a chance to try it yet, though. So what am I going to do? Just go for it? Put your trunks on? It's, you know, maxing 8 to 10 foot? Hey, Donavon, Kelly, get out of the way. I'm about to do some, as they say in the West, hold my beer, this is going to be good. It's either going to be a yard sale or a full screamer.
After their pregame warm-up, they had survived, some better than others. The event seemed daunting, but they started to gear up and get ready to paddle out. Munoz was especially eager.
He got wiped out earlier in the morning when he was just on his sample thing, got one of the worst wipeouts of his entire life. And now he's going to go back out on a board with a 10-inch tail and tweed jacket on and go for it again. Give me a break, guys. Amazing. Getting late into the afternoon, having on, you know, virtually no clothing, knowing it's going to be brutal once you hit the water. I mean, thought there was a pretty good chance I'd have a solid half hour before the pain got, you know, really unbearable.
It was so classic to walk down the beach with these suits on and these wool shirts and the arms cut off. You know, I took my work pants and just cut the legs off because they're 100% cotton.
Just as Dora had wanted, they were wearing all natural materials. Because Wingnut lost his board on the rocks earlier, they did decide to make one rule change and wear leashes. They somewhat resembled a Flintstone family portrait.
We decided to paddle out at the keyhole right in the center of the takeoff spot.
Well, we got down onto the point, all dressed up in our gear, and we're right at the keyhole for going out. Watched a few guys go out, we know what we're going to do. Looking up, and you just look up the point. You're looking up at magnas, and you're gauging swells and set breaks and the timing on when to go.
Miki finally said, I can't take it anymore, and he just jumped off the rocks. I mean, a major set came right when he jumped off the second rock.
And it was close. And the second big pile of whitewater that hit him almost pushed him back.
You know, and we just were praying for him.
Next thing you know, set for 20 minutes after that. I mean, Marc and I stood there, no chance of getting in. Looking back up the beach, everybody's just shaking their heads going, no way. And it was just thumping. So we were still on the beach. Mongoose gets all the way out, and we watch him catch that first wave. Shaun is coming streaking down the line, and here comes the mongoose dropping in on this thing. And Shaun just holds back a little bit, watching Miki make this drop.
He was just elated. He was just giggling. He just waved me on. Yeah, go for it.
I mean, and to watch that turn getting made on that drop, Shaun was more than happy to get the heck out, let the mongoose run.
It's after you stand up that it becomes like, oh, holy shit, should I have really done this? Because there's no getting out.
Take me anywhere you wanna go. Midnight need for you. I said it's all in the way you look. And stealing your beauty is beautiful. You're showing off to the
With Marc and Wingnut still on the beach, Munoz had set the bar extremely high, covering a distance that would be tough to beat.
Once you jump in the water, there's that initial, you're really pissed off, it's really cold, but you're trying to get out through the surf, so it's going to be okay. Made it out through the surf, and then it's when there are lulls, when there's a downtime between those big sets, brutal in the wind. Absolute brutal. So I was in the complete shakes, thinking this sucks. And Miki had staged himself up at Boneyards, up where Shaun and everybody was hanging out, which was way above where, in our mind, I thought we were actually going to be taking off down closer to Supers. But since Miki had already established that as the takeoff zone, it's like, we're going to start up here at Boneyards, here we go. And the hard thing out there is with the quality of surfers that were there. I mean, your basic J-Bay local is a really good surfer, but there's only a certain number of them. So when you've got such a pumping swell, you have a pretty good chance of taking a prime wave in the first, half hour that you're out there. But you add into the Donavons and Kellys and Pats and the squad that was out there, less waves for us.
It's intimidating to think about cutting one of them off, which we'd happily do at home or under any other conditions. But, if it's Kelly Slater that's coming down on you at 90 miles an hour, it's not like you're cutting off the average hack.
I hadn't ridden that board yet, so I had no idea how the thing was going to turn out, what kind of speed it would have or what. Got one quick little one, finally I'm like, okay, it's going to work. Had to get out because I didn't want to drop in on that guy, and then just wait my turn.
Finally a wave came and I had got it. I was happy.
Three weeks ago, Marc was selling insurance back in California. Today, he's riding perfect J-Bay with no wetsuit on a board he handmade. He didn't match Miki's ride, but still pretty impressive. Out in the lineup, hypothermia began to kick in.
I paddled out to Marc and Miki. I go, by the way, if I get one, don't be looking for me to come back. I mean, everybody that saw Miki drop in on that first wave was just stoked out of their minds. I was, struggling for my life trying to get in on the rocks when he got his second wave. I would have loved to have seen that.
I'm down at the end of super tubes, and it's a wedge that's so thick and steep that I was shocked, but it was so much fun because it was so fast, and I just couldn't pull out. I had to stay in it.
After an hour out in 53-degree water, plus the wind chill, the guys started to lose feeling in their extremities, making getting in no easy task. Imagine trying to navigate barefoot through razor-sharp rocks while being pushed by waves strong enough to crush a Volkswagen.
When I was coming in, I looked up, and I see, Miki with his board on his arm coming in on the rocks. When I get up to him, when I finally catch up to where he is and he's ready to put his board down, he's bleeding from every corner. Both forearms, knees, foot, blood coming out of his head. I was like, what happened? And it was just, he just came into the beach at high speed.
I was totally elated. I was like, I was laughing and crying at the same time and just going, that was really a thrill.
Marc made his way in, and all three had survived. Miki Munoz, with the longest ride, walked away with the esteem of the day.
We walked back up the beach, all the way back to the house, and he was giggling the whole way. He was high as a kite, oozing blood from every corner and just as happy as he could be.
I hear that that day was as good as it's been all year, so what a privilege to be able to ride with the hottest surfers in the world, one of the hottest waves in the world, and kind of pull it off without embarrassing yourself too much.
When you're talking about the energy in the water, considering the variation of craft from the handmade wood boards and just about everybody out there. I mean, Kelly was on, his modern hot dog board, so was Pat, but Donavon was on a, 5-fin Bonzer. There were guys out on twin fins, V-fins. This was a really brilliant day of experimentation going on. So it kind of had that vibe. We had just taken it one level stranger.
And I think it was probably a mind-expanding experience for the hot surfers, Shaun and Kelly and Pat and all those guys, to just see these guys succeed in doing something different.
Miki was passionate about surfing. That was his whole life. And it is Kelly's. Kelly's a pro. He's learned some damn good poses, Miki. And guess what? A week after the contest, where he could have been home, he's riding super tubes. And that's passion. And that's what it's about. That's so pure that I don't see, Miki can't protest that.
In the opposite of what Dora said, he considers the pro surf world a sellout world. No, they've scammed the corporate, lackeys. Corporations are paying them thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars to go play. And what's the pain? Sure, on a certain day, you've got to go down when there are horns and judges and all that BS that is a contest. But the other 300 days out of the year, you get to go surfing in some of the greatest waves ever while corporations are paying you for wearing their t-shirt. Sure, why not? It's just a better scam. It's a scam that wasn't available when Dora was alive.
Dora was chasing an ideal that not even he could live up to. He was chasing a dream. And these three surfers came to Africa, chasing that same dream. If, as Dora said, the soul of surfing has been lost, then maybe at least a piece of it was found out in the water of Jeffreys Bay that day.
If he were here right now, I'm sure he'd have some facetious remarks to make, but I think he would have appreciated very much what we did. I had a shit-eating grin on my face, all night. I was just stoked. Yeah, it was really good. And thank you, Mr. Dora, wherever you are. Thank you.
Wes and I grew up together in Santa Barbara, California, since we were kids. We played baseball together and went to school, and we had always talked about making films together one day. And when we finished school, we decided to give it a shot, and we went out and made Islands in the Stream together, which was our first film that we worked on together, and we've been working ever since.
That's exactly how it happened. Yeah, I mean that's how it went down. That was 2003 when we made Islands in the Stream. So it's 2009 now, going on 6 or 7 years now.
I think you know, our films have had some similarities with. We're always traveling, and we do touch on the topics of the commercialization of surfing, because it's something that interests us. The joy of surfing for me, and I think for Wes, is the travel, that it allows you to experience different places all around the world, and really be with people of similar ideas, which makes it great. And that's, you know, when we go to make a film, that's fun for us, is the traveling. And the commercialization of surfing is, it's an interesting topic for us, because it's something that we have to be part of in order to make movies and sell movies. But at the same time, when we want to go surf, we like to go out where nobody is and be by ourselves and kind of have a more spiritual experience. So it's the balancing of those two things always with surfing, and so it's interesting to explore that in our film.
You know, one of the main reasons that I think we both got into this, you know, is the experience of it. You know, I mean, life is an experience, and you should really love doing what you do. And we love making films, we love telling stories, and we love traveling. You know, so it wouldn't be very much fun if we just made surf movies about Los Angeles. It wouldn't be very good and probably not very entertaining. So getting to see the new, you know, a new culture and a new people, and being able to, you know, especially in the environment of filming a surf movie, you get to go and really kind of dive into a culture and spend some time there, and you get to kind of meet the people and really hang out and get some great experiences, and you know, that ultimately helps us tell the story of those people as well. Yeah, and TJ pretty much nailed it on the commercialization. I mean, it's definitely a part of the culture, and I think it's an interesting topic as far as surfing, because the duality of it is very strong, and we feed right into it by making the films. And I guess ultimately any surf filmmaker or writer or photographer or anybody that's exposing the industry is gonna, you know, you hope that the most people possible see it, and that is kind of the opposite of wanting to have your own surf break with nobody there. Very interesting. Exactly the same. You know, the most important thing, and the reason every film is different, why you wanted to make that film, but ultimately something about it made you passionate about that story. So if you're not passionate about this, whatever the story is or the subject, then you're not even going to make it probably. So ultimately you have to really care about what you're trying to create. So that's why that's number one. Number two is, you know, the cast in a surf film is they are going to be the ones telling the story besides you know, the narrator. So if they're charismatic and you know, you like what they have to say, or the emotions they bring out, I mean, that's so important. As well as, you know, if it's a surf movie, they better be good surfers, otherwise nobody's really going to want to watch it. Location kind of speaks for itself. You know, it's if there's something beautiful or if there's something interesting to film, then you can film that and it'll be part of the story. If it's bland or not as fun, I think that comes out in the story. And like we said before, you know, we love traveling, so, you know, and we love going to cool, fun places. Music sets the tone for the film. It's very important. But ultimately, if you have, you know, a great story and a good cast, you could do with not as great music. But, you know, I mean, music is a huge factor in a film. It's very important, but I don't think it's as important as the rest. And budget, I put last, but it could also be first. It's you know, we all got to make money. And you need money to make a good film. But realistically, if you had all these things and you had no money to make it, you know, I think as filmmakers we would be able to still make an interesting, fun movie even if there was no money. You know, obviously more money you could make probably a better film. But I mean, you got to make money to make a living and enjoy your life. So ultimately, you know, this could be one, because if I got $1 million to make a film and $10, I'd probably take $1 million. But it's the way it is.
So just go through the list. Okay, number one, I have, same as Wes, I have story. Because if you don't have a story, you don't have anything. And it's the most important thing. That's why we make films, is it's our way of telling stories. So that's most important. Number two, cast. The people are the vehicles you use to tell the story, and they make it interesting. They can make it uninteresting too if they're not good. So that's very important. Location is your canvas. It's what you're going to see, and the vibe you're going to have, and it's very important. Music, like Wes says, it sets the tone, and it creates the ambiance that you want people to feel. It helps with the emotional draw. And then budget is, you can always find a way to make it work. If you've got a great story, you can rob a bank and you get the money to make the movie. You know, however you need to do it, you can find a way to do it. So, yes.
Look at this. Crazy, huh? We had no idea what we were going to write.
So Miki Dora in America is one of the most kind of controversial and popular surfers of kind of that 1960s, and he's known as the Black Knight, and he was kind of the first rock star of surfing, a guy who approached surfing in a way that nobody had before, and he was a rebel and a criminal and an artist and a poet and a warrior. He was, you know, really an amazing guy, and he was, you know, at Malibu, one of the first guys to really make Malibu the wave that it was, and all over California. And he went to Hawaii and surfed there, and he was always a controversial character because he hated the commercialization of surfing. He hated the idea of having contests, of surfing becoming a popular thing, but he was always in the Hollywood surf movies. He was always getting money from sponsors. He was always coming up with schemes and different ways to allow him to surf. And so he's, of late especially, he died in 2003. And since his death, people have come to revere him a little more, just because of the kind of art of his life, the way he lived for himself and he lived for surfing, and he did it in a very interesting way, in a way that, you know, people either hated him or loved him, but you can look at the way he lived his life, and it's an amazing story.
Yeah, well, I mean, the reason we chose to tell this story wasn't particularly that we wanted to make a film about Miki Dora at all. It was, you know, TJ. I had no idea that this article existed, and TJ read the article that Miki wrote that was published by Steve Pesman at the Surfers Journal after Dora passed away. And in the article, it states the rules that we end up showing in the film. And, you know, it just seemed like a wonderful idea, but a very hard idea as well. So it wasn't that we wanted to make a film about something that Dora was doing or an idea that Dora had. It was just that it seemed like such a wonderful story, and it seemed like a very challenging story as well. And it's hard to talk about somebody that is so loved and so hated, and even the topic of commercialization is often skirted in the surf community because nobody really wants to deal with it. So you don't really want to step on any toes, but you want to tell the best story possible. And that's kind of how it all came about.
Yeah, I mean the article that Miki wrote called the Aquatic Ape was really the inspiration for us telling that story, and it was an article that Miki wrote very beautifully, but also in a sarcastic way. I think that he had this idea, but he thought he would make it so ridiculous that nobody would ever try it, that it was something that would never happen, and that was kind of inspired us too to be like, well, we're gonna make this happen. We're actually gonna do this, and that journey of making it happen for us was amazing. And through the process, we learned a lot about Dora. We knew about him because he's famous, but meeting all of these people that were in his life and hearing the stories about him and kind of how he came to have these views was really interesting for us. I think that the way we tell the story is just kind of the style that we've developed in becoming filmmakers, and I don't think it will change. I mean, I think there will always be new ways people will find to tell stories. There will always be new technology that allows you to do it better. But I think the spirit of surfing and traveling will always be there, and people will always want to take that classic journey to just pack your bag and pack a board and a camera and go somewhere and explore. And I don't think that will ever change.
Yeah, and I don't think, and especially it won't change on our end, but as far as how we make movies, because we like to tell a story, we like the adventure, and that's why we do it, So, there's other ways to make surf films. A lot of people really like seeing a bunch of radical maneuvers and big waves, and I mean, I like seeing that too. But that's not the filmmaker that I want to be, and that's not the stories that I want to tell. So, there's always going to be new mediums and of showing where surfing's at. Like the internet, on TV, and some people think film's a thing of the past. We still really enjoy the look of film, So that's how we like to tell a story. And if we're going to be making surf films, hopefully you're always getting better and becoming a better filmmaker and telling better stories. And maybe with that who knows, we'll lose some things and gain other things. But the style of travel, or the experience of the things that we've had in our films, that's what we enjoy, and that's what will always be there for us.
My favorite scene in the film is the end, the contest, and when Mickey Munoz takes off on that wave and he makes it. It's just, I still get goosebumps. It was such a special moment for Mickey and for us, for the film. It just all came together at that moment, and I love watching it every time.
The whole film was great, and I do have certain parts that I love watching, but hands down, Mickey catching that wave was such a wonderful thing to be a part of and to see. And Mickey told TJ and I after that it was one of the, if not the most fun and the best wave he's ever had, and one of the best experiences he's ever had in surfing. So for somebody that's a legend like that, who's done so many wonderful things, like one of the first people to surf Waimea, he was out there that day, and I mean, he's done some incredible things. He's a great craftsman and waterman. So for him to say that is pretty special, and for us to be a part of that and to share that with him was, I mean, that's what it's all about right there.
I hope that everyone in Japan gets a chance to see the movie, and so that the Japanese surfers really enjoy seeing these three guys do something very special, and it's appealing for everyone. I think the whole process of making a board with your own hands out of wood and kind of bringing it back to the way people originally surfed. You know, you had to go find wood and shape it into something and paddle out into the ocean. And I think that is very raw and very appealing to everybody. And it's a special film and a special moment that was captured, and I hope that everyone enjoys it.
Yeah, me as well. The Japanese surf culture is a wonderful culture, and I think they really embrace a lot of the things that we talk about in this film, just in their own culture in general. And you know, whether you're young or old, you know, I think it appeals to the senses, the reasons that you like surfing. And yeah, I mean, I really just hope that as many people as possible here in Japan can see it for no other reason than it's a wonderful, kind of happy, heartwarming story for Miki, and it's a great trip. And there's, you know, South Africa is a beautiful place, and you know, the whole reason we make our films is to tell a story, and, you know, and to share that story with as many people as we can that want to listen.
Search in every corner of my mind to make it all come true, to give it up for you. We just came too close, but threw it all away this time. What have I turned into? As I feel so alive, you're so pure, so divine. As we broke down the ice, and I feel the verve inside. Now I feel so divided by the chains in my mind, and I'm stranded in doubt as I change. But as I leave behind the man I used to be, to slide away in time, the selfish state of mind. Though you gave far across the ocean, so many miles from here. There's a place that's almost heaven, a place that I hold dear. For all the miles I've traveled, there's none I'd rather be than that little piece of heaven waiting in the middle of the sea. It's gonna be a paddle from here, but the breeze is warm and the water's clear. Without hesitation we dive right into the blue, yeah. With nothing but horizon in sight, you and me, we paddle with all our might. And if the waves keep breaking, we'll stay till the day is through.
Head, Marc, yo, everybody's head! She's up on his fucking head, Marc, just release, Marc. What did he do to you?
And my mind's far away, to the tropic breezes blowing, the warm sand beneath my feet. My radio's still playing, but she's dancing to a different beat. It's gonna be a paddle from here. The breeze is warm and the water's clear. Without hesitation we dive right into the blue, yeah. With nothing but horizon in sight, you and me, we paddle with all our might.
It looks like one thing, but there's much more to it, you know, if you scratch the surface. So I think there's a lot of people look at something, they go, that's just that, or that's just suburbia, or that's just surfing, or that's just the Pentagon, you know, whatever it is. And there's a hell of a lot more. There's people, and there's flesh and blood, and stories, and laughter, and tears, and all that stuff. I thought after making Step in Liquid, I'd never do anything else on surfing, because that was it. Everything I ever had to say about surfing, I said. It turned out not to be the case.
I mean, we took a big gamble coming out here. We took a big gamble going to Baja with 50 cameras and 90 people. And I think a lot of it goes back to just believing in things, you know. We didn't always know the outcome, but we knew we were on a path that was going to work.
It is one of the most beautiful places on earth.
In that 10-mile stretch of beach, you have the best assortment of waves in the world.
All the world's hottest surfers are here. The contest is on. This is ground zero of the whole surfing world.
This is where it goes down. This is Mount Everest for surfers.
Everybody is here for their own reasons, whether it's fame, whether it's fortune.
That is why they come to the North Shore, to prove their worth.
I don't feel that you're a complete surfer unless you can come to Hawaii and do well.
There's so many pro surfers and aspiring pro surfers, so many people here, and it's a zoo.
You got to get your mind prepared for that because you're dealing with the most intense crowd of any spot anywhere in the world.
One wave can make a person's whole career.
Got to be on top of your game the whole time, otherwise you can get seriously hurt. It's really shallow out there.
And it's reef like cement.
Always fearing hitting your head on the reef and dying.
The most dangerous wave in the world. More people have lost their lives there than anywhere.
You see your friends 1 minute, you're shaking their hands, and then, you know, a minute later, they're gone.
Family values is strong in Hawaiian culture. If you treat them nice, they'll treat you extremely nice. But if you treat them bad, they're going to treat you extremely bad.
Hawaii, this is the church of surfing. And this ocean that we ride out there, it gives you power. Power for your spirit to grow, or power for you to grow ego.
Surfing is what you create it to be, what your dream is, and make it something to enjoy and live by.
And every generation has their turn. It's not how good it was years ago. It's that good right today.
When the waves are big and you're sleeping on the beach and you can hear the walls shaking all night, it makes you feel really small. I love that feeling.
The imagination is the only limit here. It's the most beautiful place in the world, and it's the most scary place in the world.
Love it, you hate it, you love it, you hate it. You don't want to be there, you want to be there.
Baja has a way of educating you. Push that edge, and you're done.
For generations, families have competed.
I lived it, I ate it, I slept it.
Challengers have tried to conquer.
You get off that line, it gets hairy.
The most dangerous race in the world.
This is an emergency. We have an injured driver.
The Baja 1000.
You don't fall asleep here.
One man will try the impossible.
I came along, next thing I knew, I flew right off the edge of a cliff.
I was afraid he's gonna die.
And go it alone.
All I could think about in the world was finishing that race, and nothing was gonna stop me.
It's a controlled explosion.
Go, 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 Luger, go!
The pressure of winning is always there. You expect it.
Anything less is unacceptable. As you go through life, if you knew you were making history, you would have paid more attention to it.
It's like being in a 24-hour plane crash.
You never, never, never give up.
1,000 miles, 32 hours, hundreds of drivers, including Robbie Gordon, Jimmy Vasser, Ricky Johnson, and Grand Marshal Mario Andretti. They will meet their greatest challenge, to finish what they started.
Go through whatever you have to go through and getting there. Just getting there.
Dust to glory.
Let's face it, this is not for wusses.
You're stepping into liquid, you're stepping off of concrete ground and into an element that is always changing and moving, and it's surrounding you, and it feels good.
Once you're a surfer, you're done. You're in. It's like the mob or something. You're not getting out.
It's like falling in love. But you don't know what the feeling is until you felt it.
This is it. This is how good I feel. This is what it's all about.
At the edge of everything you know, there is something you can't imagine until you step into liquid. No other feeling comes close.
Seems to end up Sometimes I care, other days I think it funny to be standing here with a bill, no days for underwear like this, and then right now, underwear. We wear our head down in our eyes again. We wear our head down in our eyes again. Yeah.
Can't believe that you're knocking on my door. Oh, it's been so long, been so long. Fate has a way of showing I'm where you belong. Oh, it's been so long, been so long. So long, been so long.
I want to be a pro surfer.
Pro surfer. When I grow up, I want to be a surfer.
Gold Coast, it's sort of like the Las Vegas, California of Australia.
Byron has a reputation for the alternative lifestyle.
How those two places ended up an hour apart, I don't know. It's like, must be some cruel joke someone's playing.
You know, Byron Bay and the Gold Coast gave birth to the two archetypes of modern pro surfing.
The Australian energy just swept in and overcame this lackadaisical cruiser California mentality.
A real change was happening in surfing, and Australia was the place where it was happening.
In '69 I moved to Byron and none of us were competing. So their whole deck of cards of competitive surfing collapsed.
There was nothing. Whether you liked it or not, you were just soul surfing.
There was a lot of conflict and confusion. They didn't understand we needed to be famous. If we were going to make money and pro surfing was going to be on TV, you couldn't be a hippie.
And once you got an audience, it became like the movies. You develop a star system. And then from the star system, you've got the studios. It's Quicksilver, Billabong. They've got this stable of stars.
But I think that things really changed there when the companies realised that there was this thing called soul surfing, and now is creating a culture, this surfing look.
The industry sell the dream, and the best surfers sell the dream for the industry.
Keep it straight. Hope it's not too late. I know I'm made to wait. This time I will.